Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy, my channel's Finding Value. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different, and sometimes I do this, but in Elliott Wave, and this isn't Elliott Wave, I'm just comparing patterns. And I'm talking about a real pattern versus a real pattern. So one found in history versus one today that is scribing it out. But in Elliott Wave, what they propose, and I agree with it because I see the pattern all over the place, is that a pattern repeats over and over and over and over. And it just repeats on different time scales. So you can have very compressed patterns that have the same type of pattern, and that pattern repeats over and over and over and over. So any way you look at it, if you were to zoom out or if you were to zoom in, the pattern is repeating on just different time frames. Different on nanoseconds versus seconds versus minutes versus hours versus weeks versus months versus years versus decades. That pattern repeats over and over and over and over, and it's roughly the same pattern. Well, it is the same pattern. That's what they propose. And the pattern it can be drawn out. It can be, a consolidation pattern can go down, it can go up, but the actual movements within the pattern, the up and down movements they propose are all the same. And if you look for it, you can see it, but sometimes if you look too deep into it, you go crazy because you're looking for a pattern that repeats, and you can see this pattern all over the place on all different time scales. It's basically herd mentality. And what I'm doing here is I'm applying herd mentality to different time frames on different charts of unrelated things. So I'm taking a copper chart, comparing it to a Bitcoin chart on different time scales, and they're basically the same pattern. I mean, the movements are roughly the same, but one could be scrunched up, one could be drawn out, one could be up, one could be down a little bit, but in aggregate, they are the same pattern. I'm going to show you a whole bunch of different things in commodities to kind of see where we can gauge where we're at. Are we about to take off? Do we have a little bit more time? What about Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of these other assets that some people asked about in the comment section? I'm going to compare everything. And I see these patterns all the time. I've looked at probably hundreds of thousands of charts because I do it all the time. Per day, just even doing the daily analysis. I want to see how these patterns repeat, and if I can get a better entry point, lower risk, higher return entry points is where it's at. And eventually, a lot of this stuff, when you make enough money, you kind of like say, okay, I got enough here. And I think we're coming up to a point where we could see life-changing returns for whatever reason, for whatever you want to do. So I'm going to go into here. We're going to do technical analysis. It's a little bit different. Again, this doesn't mean anything. I'm just doing it for the fun of it. You guys can probably see the patterns in front of you, and you could probably recognize what I'm recognizing. Hopefully, I can do that well enough here. So the first one I'm going to do, and I've got a bunch of them here. So here's Bitcoin. Let's zoom in. So see if I can get all three in here like this. So Bitcoin here, silver price here, and this is a 1 year of Bitcoin zoomed in on this section here, and you can see the arrow is the same arrow. So people are asking me, is this a breakout and is it going to go higher? Usually what happens is you come on down, and then it kind of takes a little bit more time before moving. So what happens is you come on up and you do these bounces, and they almost all exhibit the same characteristics that just look a little bit different. It bounces, comes up, you get this hump. So a hump here, then that's the end of the cycle right here. And then this starts a new upward cycle. I propose that this arrow here, where we are today, this right here, and obviously I don't know for sure. This is complete just looking at different types of charts that we're probably going to have to come down or something like that for a little bit more time. But Nothing is 100% sure here, because you could look at some of this stuff, and remember the pattern repeats over and over. You could say that this pattern here, at the end here, this entire pattern, is this pattern here. See how you lead in here? You got this little move there. It came up, comes up. You do a couple of movements here. They did a couple of movements here. It pulled down, back up, and then it came across and over, and then it pulled back. So you could say that this move here is the beginning of this move here. And it very well could be. Another way that you could look at it, and this one's a little bit more not as solid as some of the other charts, you could say that this was coming through and that this move down movement's the same as this down movement. And I've got arrows here and an arrow here. You could say that this pullback is going to make, basically, if you look at this one, we get zoomed in, is that we're right at where this arrow is, and that it's going to have to probably pull on back here, and it's got a little bit more time to consolidate. You could also look at it from that perspective. And remember, I don't know for sure. I'm just doing this for fun. But here's a weird thing. This silver chart, if you look at it in its entirety, is the same as Bitcoin's chart to the T. Look at the movements in here. I'm going to zoom in just to show you. All right, look at this movements in here, that chart right there. Zoom in and really look at it. It is the same movement to the T as this here, and I put the arrows in the same spot. And you can tell how this one pulls back. It does the same movements all in here. It drops down and then comes up. It drops down and then comes up. This movement here is this movement here. You have this now, this is all scrunched up in here. This here is scrunched up in here. Remember, this is a huge time frame for silver. This is a scrunched up time frame for Bitcoin. Then when it came up, you could see this kind of pullback there. It's the same pullback here. And then this is wave 5. So you could say that this is all interconnected, just like it is over here. And that we are in a consolidation process. We could be in a consolidation process. And that this section here mimics this section here with the arrows being at the same spot. And it's just uncanny that I found this type of chart. Remember, this chart on the left, Bitcoin, is doing it at a much faster pace. This is much, much slower. And we could use this pattern over on the left, which is Bitcoin, to basically to foreshadow moves in silver. Because remember, this is just herd mentality playing over and over again. But this chart here in the movements are exactly the same as this chart over here, if you were to really look at it. And I'll put these on Twitter so you guys can look at it for yourself. My name is @finding_finance. Now, I've got more here. Here's the oil price. Now, what's absolutely insane about this is it's the same pattern. Now, I've got the entire market over here of oil, the entire history that I can pull. On the right-hand side is zoomed in from 05 to 2021. And this is the pattern it makes. If you look at the old pattern from the late 70s to 2000-ish, somewhere in this range here, and again, it's the same pattern as platinum has, as silver has, as all the others. When you look at this pattern and how it scribes it all out, it's the same pattern as this. This, and remember, it's just squeezed up or drawn out. If this pattern here represents this beginning portion, and you come down, it has some movements here, some movements, comes up, makes a hump. Anyway, if you go all the way here, I have this arrow, and that's where I propose we're at. This is the arrow here, so to do that is there. And we just broke out of this downtrend. Guess what? If this down movement is analogous to this movement, we are somewhere in this range where the arrow's at. If I zoom in here, this is what I'm looking at, this area in here. This area in here is the same as this area over here, or what's inside this box. So if you were to look at it, this type of movement here is analogous to this type of movement here. We had a large drop. We had a large drop. We've got this kind of hump. We've got this kind of hump. We came up, and this movement here is this movement here. The hump is squeezed all up together. This hump down portion is this hump down portion. Then we come on up, and it has the same type of movement. We come on back, we come on back, and we popped up, breaking this downtrend. We popped up, breaking the downtrend. So we still have a little bit longer to go in oil before it really takes off, I think. I think we have a little bit longer to go. And here's copper versus Bitcoin on a big copper scale. I'm not using silver. Here is, remember, these are both logarithmic. Bitcoin on the right. Now, if you look, this is the same exact pattern. And you can see what happened here as we came higher with copper. We came higher with Bitcoin. So this could be the end of a cycle right here. And this arrow is analogous, this entire section here where it does this is analogous to this entire section here. So it kind of chops sideways, chops sideways. It even has the same type of movements. This one's just drawn out. We drop down here. We came up and created this movement here. Pull back higher, pull back higher. We have some choppiness in here. This one was just slightly downward. We dropped out to this star. The star came here, had this little pattern come up and over. We came sideways and down where these arrows are at. And then we moved higher, we moved higher. So this pattern is exactly the same as the copper pattern is. On a long-term scale of copper, this one's very short-term from October. This is almost this is a year-long chart pattern. Same pattern to the T of copper and Bitcoin. Herd mentality, scribing out these patterns. Now, what I'm proposing is whatever Bitcoin does next is probably what copper is going to do next. And then we just need to watch this pattern play out, and it's probably going to mimic the pattern over here. It's crazy how these things are. Now here's platinum. Platinum, what I'm doing is I'm looking at this pattern here and this pattern here. This pattern is the same as this pattern, just scrunched up. It's the same pattern. This big move is over amplified because of the conditions that we were in, but it actually fell right here. So this move here, coming back up, is this move here. It's all scrunched up. This is scrunched up. This is drawn out. The box, this pattern, so you've got this loop going up. That's this loop going up. Then we got this scrunched up pattern here. That's that scrunched up pattern here. We drop down to the arrow. We came up and over. That's this portion here all scrunched up. This portion here is this portion here with the COVID sell-off in it. And this big hump is this big hump that's all scrunched up. This pulled back to about the top of this. The top of this, we're right about there almost. And then look what happened between. A large move higher. This is very close to a large move, I think. This pattern is just a scrunched up pattern of this. It has the same herd mentality components in this pattern. It's all the same. And I'm going to try to show you what it looks like scrunched up. Let me find it here real quick. Here it is. This is me playing with it. So here's the platinum timeframes from 1980 to 2000. This is the pattern I'm looking at. This is the pattern scrunched up. So I scrunched it up, and this is the 2008 to 2021 pattern that we're looking at. This pattern is the same as this pattern with its components. The only thing that's different is this big move higher is next to each other. So the red dot here is this red dot going over. We've got this green scrunched up period. the green scrunched up period. It fell down, fell down. We have this loop. We have this loop. We scrunched up here. That's the scrunched up portion here. And then we came up and down. And now we're doing that up and down movement. The purple's the purple. This is another one, the 1980 to 2000 scrunched up. These two are the same pattern. I scrunched it up even more to show you what it looks like. And I'll zoom in and show you how similar these patterns are. The only difference is this movement here is scrunched up together versus apart like this one is. And then it all comes to a point, and drops down. And you can see that this is basically, you got the hump there, you got that scrunched up pattern here, and then it comes up, pulls back, comes up, pulls back. It's the same pattern. It's uncanny how these patterns are the same. Now, if we're here, right here, that's analogous to a very large move higher. It's analogous to right here that we're about to move, according to this pattern, a big move higher. So platinum, according to this, I don't know how much more downside we have left, is about to launch. Now, silver, I think, is in a little bit different spot. I'm proposing silver. I don't know if silver's in the same spot. It's hard to tell. And gold. But platinum looks like it's doing the same pattern, just scrunched up, and we're right there, ready to go at any point now. Here is SM Energy's pullback here, because I've seen this pattern over and over. And here's the copper pattern on the right. We've got this looping sideways action, and I propose that you could say that this is the top here, and that the looping sideways action is right here. So it's this move, ends here, you get this pullback, you get the pullback. Inside this box, you always get these loops. That's that over loop. We saw it on platinum just now too. Remember, this pattern repeats over and over. Just scrunched up and moved around a bunch. We got this high move higher. This is the pop higher right here. We come back. It's the same type of pattern coming up, just like this one is. And in the circle here, we get this nice little tail. Here's your little tail. And then we shot higher on copper right after this pattern completed. SM Energy, when I went long here, that's where I went long, is the same pattern as copper is on a scale that's much different. This is like a year-long scale here. This is, over a decade long. 2 decades from back here. So this is a decade-long pattern on this side over here. Crazy. Now here's SM Energy, and this one is a highly volatile company. And what I did is I looked and I zoomed in. So if it's a pattern that repeats, this pattern is going to be close to this pattern. They're just going to look a little bit different. They're not going to be exactly the same look-wise, but the pattern's going to be scrunched up, pulled apart, and it could be moved up or down. So you can have consolidation patterns that move sideways to up versus down. If you look at this consolidation pattern here on a big long-term chart, we've got a star, the arrow, the box, and I'm proposing we're somewhere in this section here for SM Energy on this pullback. This hump where the star is the same hump as this star. So I propose that this was a move higher here, and then this is a consolidation phase right here. We've got the humps over, the humps over. We do all this little scrunched up stuff. It's all scrunched up in here. The arrow's the same as this arrow. We do this move higher to the box. We do this move higher to the box. We come back. It goes sideways. And remember, some of this can be distorted a little bit too. We come down. You could say that this pattern's complete right here. And that is very close to being complete. I don't know if it is complete. It's all scrunched up. This is zoomed in on this tip over here. This is zoomed in. If you look and you try to make ends of it, this is analogous to this. The box would be up here. We pull back. So we have like this little pullback here. It comes up and over, comes down. I think we're real close to where this tick mark is, or just behind it. It's all scrunched up, so it's hard to see. You could say that this downward move is this downward move, and we're about to move higher. Or you could say we're somewhere like in this area here, where we might still come back down to like 16 or something. And that's probably highly likely. But I'm just looking at this stuff, trying to see how these patterns relate to each other. And I think we're getting close in oil. I think we'd still have a little bit longer to go before moving higher. And when looking at that long-term oil chart, I think we still have a little bit more work to go before moving substantially higher. Now here's Ethereum. This one I'm looking at a logarithmic scale, and it's like you get this consolidation period, move higher, consolidation period, move higher, consolidation period, move higher. Now this could be one massive consolidation period that we're coming up. And if you notice something, is what does this look like? It looks like a cup and handle pattern that's forming. Maybe it's a cup and handle. Maybe we'll break out of this thing and it moves substantially higher. Very well could. Looking at like a downtrend, looking for trends, but this could be a cup and handle here. Here is Bitcoin, looking at it from a logarithmic scale of all the data. We have this consolidation periods here that I'm looking at. We have 1, 2, 3. It's done here, and then it does this lead-in stuff here to move higher. 1, so you get this hump is the hump, another hump behind it, which is another hump. It comes to a consolidation point. It comes to a consolidation point. So this point here is this point here. It pulls back. It pulls back. It's 3, 3. And then the lead-in coming up. The lead-in coming up. This one's drawn out a little bit more. This one's scrunched up. It does this movement here. It does this movement all through here. It ends there. It ends here. And then you get the big blow-off top. Now, if we get the big blow-off top, what I'm proposing is this side over here still needs to go through all this. It needs to go back through this consolidation period. And I don't think we've done that. I think that this point here is like right at the tip here, I think. Because we do have a little hump in here, which I think is this hump here, and it is scrunched up. You could say that this hump is all scrunched up here, and this move here is this where number 2 is. That's probably where we're at, is where number 2 is. So I think it takes more time to consolidate, probably come back to about 20,000, maybe a little bit higher, 25,000, somewhere in that range. And I think that would probably be a good entry point for Bitcoin. Again, this is just speculation. I'm not a pro at this, and I'm just showing you guys different chart patterns and how they all align. So that's what I've got. Where's the oil one? This oil one looks like we're very close to breaking out and moving higher. But I look at some of this stuff. I know that the patterns do repeat. To me, they look like they're repeating. And whatever Bitcoin does, I think it still has to scribe out a little bit longer pullback here. Maybe. We'll see. If Bitcoin just takes off, I think that's what copper's going to do. It's just copper's doing it on a slower time scale. And the reason I don't invest in some of these Bitcoin things is I don't know what the value is. I agree with the underlying, we need money that is free market money. We need something that is unmanipulated. And I totally agree with that type of thought process. The problem is Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these ones, they can't be our money. They're not fast enough. They can't provide enough transactions per second. There are other cryptocurrencies that are not blockchain that can provide that service. And perhaps maybe I'll put some money into that. And I want to do a little bit more research before stating all this, just giving you the name of it. Let me do a little more research on it. The chart does look decent. But that one I think can work. And it doesn't use the energy requirements. It is centralized. It is not decentralized. And it can provide utility to companies to actually provide value. And it could work as a currency because it can do many thousands of transactions, hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. So that's, maybe I'll throw a little bit in there. Who knows? But that one I can get behind because it has utility to society. I don't want to get behind something that has no utility or that's very cumbersome. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I don't know why anybody would keep it around. But the newer generation stuff, Hashgraph, is, I think, a little bit is doable, and I think that is going to replace blockchain because of its utility to society, its abilities to transact and do all these things. So that's kind of my take on it. But hopefully you guys like this presentation. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.